Good morrow, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Fantasy Folk, where we discuss all things in the fantasy genre, from books and games to television and film. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me as my traveling companion down these fantastical roads, as always, is Ron. How are you today, Ron?
I'm doing great, man. We finally get to kind of get our hands in here. Everybody knows us that watched our intro episode, but now
Yeah.
we get to kind of, dive into what we're really going to be about here. And we were just talking, before we started recording about how we're fired up, we're excited. And yeah, I'm just super stoked to kind of get into all of this today with you.
Yeah, so we will be talking season 2, episodes 1 through 3 of The Rings of Power. So if you have not had a chance to watch those yet, maybe this will not be the episode for you, because we're not even going to go really episode by episode. We're going to go character by character when we start breaking this thing down. Uh, so you're not even safe in that regard, because once we start really getting into it, and we're talking about, like, let's say Elrond, we'll be talking all 3 episodes and his arc in those 3 so far freely too. I would say we're not going to be like in episode 1 he was doing,
Yeah,
like, it's going to be just kind of like a free for all when
yeah.
we're talking that. But
Sort of the aerial view, if you will.
yes, but I did want to say before we do that, because we didn't really get a chance to talk season 1, I didn't want to go too much into it in our introductory episode and make it like a very dated thing at the end.
Yeah.
But I guess, real quick, season 1 thoughts, because you had just watched it for the first time. I'm sure you had heard numerous things about the show before you had watched, but making this podcast, we were pretty much like, hey, this is the first fantasy show that's launching as soon as our podcast is. Let's discuss it. And you had to catch up. So what was your thoughts on season 1? And then I have some specific questions about some of the stuff that happens in season 1 I wanted to ask you about before we dive in.
Cool. Yeah, it would have been launching a podcast where our two main things we're talking about discussing is Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. If we're like, all right, and by our first thing, we're gonna ignore this Lord of the Rings show out. But
And also have totally missed House of the Dragon.
yeah. Yeah. So I mean, anybody who listened to our intro episode knows that I am much more of a Game of Thrones / A Song of Ice and Fire kind of guy over Lord of the Rings. Still love Lord of the Rings and everything, but it wasn't like when Rings of Power first dropped and I saw that it was very mixed reviewed. I was like, 8 hour full hour episodes, like do I want to make the investment? But I'm glad I did, because I really enjoyed the first season. I loved, like, the creative ways that they set the tone for the things that we saw in the movies, like with the creation of Mordor and all that stuff. I just thought it was done very well. I thought that the fan service wasn't so much fan service as much as it was uh, in service of the story, which we kind of knew was going to be the case, because this is a retelling of the Second Age, so it's all the stuff that led up to what we saw in the movies. But I thought that even like seeing the Balrog at the bottom at the end of the first season, like, it wasn't just like, ooh, that's just a little Easter egg. For those of you who know, like, that's something we are going to see playing out in hopefully this season, but maybe not, because you said what they're planning on 5 for this show.
Uh, no, it's 8 episodes.
No, how many?
Oh, 5 seasons? Oh no,
Seasons?
the Balrog will. I believe the Balrog is in this season
Okay, good,
from
good.
the trailer. I believe we are going to see the Balrog. So
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So
yeah,
yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It's been a good mix of, for those who have seen the movies and enjoyed them, like, you can get your own experience out of it. And if you haven't, like, I don't think you're totally lost. I think that you could still use this as an entry point and not feel like you're just trying to play catch up the whole time. So overall, I really enjoyed the first season, and that's why I was so excited for this one to kick off. And so far, even though there were some really epic moments, especially in the back half of the first season, I think this one's off to an even better. Like, there's more potential for this one to be way better than the first
and the critic reviews have been better. The fan reviews have been
one.
better so far in season 2. So I do think we are hitting another gear. You mentioned the Mordor creation. One thing I wanted to shout out, I really got goosebumps the first time I saw it and the rewatch when you see the Southlands come up on the font and then it
Yes,
just disintegrates into Mordor.
yes,
Oh, that was so cool.
so cool.
And
And
then
the way that they did it, they kind of like fake you out. It's like they make it seem like
they
that.
had won, right?
Yes, and it was
Yeah.
like, okay, so maybe this was the fake out, and down the road they'll do the real thing, and then just when that slow kind of creeping realization creeps in, and then you see the I don't even remember the old man's name, but when he does the thing, and it just, oh my god, it was like, oh no, it was
That guy gets it coming to him, doesn't he?
yeah, yes he does.
But all right, how about the Sauron reveal? So I want to take you to season 1, Lord of the Rings Twitter, Rings of Power Twitter, all that kind of stuff. Podcasts, all that kind of stuff that was covering the show then. I was following along with all of it. I was watching it as it aired, and I was, listening to podcasts like this and all that. It was a very popular theory that Halbrand was Sauron, but there was also the contingent that thought the Stranger was Sauron. And they play into both of them. And in that final episode, or one of the final episodes, we have the witches, right, that are kind of with the evil wizard, as he's credited in Dark Wizard, as he's credited in the credits for season 2. We see them go back to him afterwards, but like they thought the Stranger was Sauron. He's not. We get the reveal of Halbrand being a Sauron. Did that work for you? Did you expect it as somebody that's just binging it, or like were you picking up on stuff like that? Because that was a very popular theory that I could not escape. I didn't think of it, but when people start saying it, then I'm looking for stuff, and you start thinking like, oh, this is what's happening. And like I love that image when Galadriel finds out, and like you see Sauron in the water with her, like the shadows reflection. I love it.
Yes, of the with the headpiece and everything. Yeah, it's
Yes.
awesome.
Yep.
I picked up on it, I would say, because again, I wasn't on the Lord of the Rings side of Twitter, so I had no clue, what was rumored when or whatever. I picked up on it right when I kind of ruled out Adar, because he was going to be my first choice, especially like the way that they kind of introed him at the end of the episode, and it was like that blurry silhouette of just him walking forward. I was like, all right, so maybe they don't want to focus on the whole mystery of the who is Sauron. Like they'll give it to us right away, and then we'll just kind of get into things. But it ended up being a red herring, because they definitely wanted you to believe that Adar was Sauron as well. But once that was kind of revealed to be the red herring, and I was just looking elsewhere, it was like, maybe the Stranger, but seems a little on the nose. And when you're doing this sort of process of elimination of characters that we already know, it's none of them. You eventually landed on a place where it could almost only be Halbrand. So I would say probably a little over halfway through, maybe like episode 6, 5, 6, somewhere around there. I was like, yeah, that's got to be him. Especially when you think back to the conversation he has with Galadriel about like, I've done these things and all that stuff. It was like, all right, yeah, it's got to be him.
Yeah, Halbrand, my favorite character of the show. I think he is absolutely great, and that reveal worked for me very, very well. That's a good place to start. So I guess let's start with him. Let's start with Sauron in this season, because I feel like these first 3 episodes are very much his story as well as the whole show. And I think starting with him is very interesting for me, because it starts with him. The flashback. We start with a flashback here in episode 1 where he is explaining to the orcs, Morgoth is gone. I am going to take over type of thing. And it comes down to Adar needing to almost vouch for him, right? And then needing to place the crown on him. But that's where things kind of twist, right? And Adar seeks his moment here and tries to kill him, and then everybody starts joining in to kill Sauron, and they succeed for a time. He does kind of morph into this blood and then this swamp thing type creature as he's eating rats, which I felt very sorry for the rat. Like you said, more sorry for the rat than the woman that he later gets. But then he becomes Halbrand. Like before that, it's actually played by a different actor, which I thought was a very, very interesting choice, to show that, this is how he really looked. And it's not just that Halbrand is his normal look that he's twisting. Because then we kind of see when he turns into Anatar, right? Still Charlie Vickers. And, with some elven features instead. But yeah, what'd you make of this opening? We get to see all of this great stuff with the flashback and get him up to the point of where he runs into Galadriel at the end of Adrift, episode 2 of season 1.
So there were two main takeaways that I had from it, but also just to kind of piggyback off of your point there. I think another reason that they had him cast as a different actor was just to show that he has been so many people throughout the years. You know what I mean? He's taken so many
Yeah.
faces and so many forms that you never really knew who he was. So I think that was just another fun, like, creative way to get that across. But the two things that I really took away from that intro was, one, really seems like they're stepping up the violence this season. Like that whole sequence of him getting stabbed in the crown in the back of his neck, and then after he becomes that like blob creature, like when he sneaks into the cart, like the sound effects of him like breaking that lady's bones and everything, it was like, Jesus Christ. Like, I just, it was there was violence in the first season, but it really seems like as we're kind of like picking up and gearing up more here, they're going to lean more into that, which is kind of cool. I think it's, makes it feel a little more adult, a little more serious. But the main thing that I took away is that I really enjoy how they're framing Sauron. It's like this, like, he's very clearly the bad guy and he's very clearly Sauron and all that stuff. But I feel like they're attempting to kind of make him a little more gray, not in terms of his intentions, because we know what his intentions, but I guess in terms of like maybe the audience feeling bad for him and being a little more of the sort of protagonist role. Like, I don't even want to say anti-hero, because that still implies that he has good intentions and just bad way about it. But it's very interesting the way that they're almost kind of framing him as a protagonist here. And I think as we get more throughout the season, that'll probably fade as he starts to become more influential to everybody and more, evil in the things that he does. But I think it was a really cool thing to start out with that sort of framing, to where, you can almost make a case where you feel bad for him a little bit, when he's getting shanked by all these orcs and everything. And yeah, so I enjoyed it a lot, and I thought it was a really strong way to start the season.
I think what you said too about it getting more violent, I think that just makes sense as we go too, because we're getting closer and closer to the third age, which is uh, going to be, or I would say maybe more and more closer to the end of the second age, which is at the darkest until the end of the third age, right? Because you have the last alliance of men and the end of the second age that come together and try to um, stop Sauron and succeed for a time until the ring eventually comes back to him. So I think that is like a good way of setting it up, even though this is a flashback, this takes place in the back. But like the rest of the show should be getting darker. Mordor is a thing now, right? We now are having more stakes. Numenor is getting involved. They've been living off on their own little land for a bit. Now they're going to have to start getting involved, right? And you have the elves are going to have to start getting involved instead of just sitting in their ivory towers for a bit. Like they
We
have
even
to
saw,
start getting
like,
more.
they did the really cool thing with the map of Mordor, how it has like the black like spider veins, and then it went over
Yes,
to
yeah.
Khazad-dûm, and then it goes right into everything that happened there. So yeah, it was definitely the chain reaction that's gonna kick all this shit into going. I said I wasn't gonna swear in this show. I was gonna try to be a little more reserved, but here we go. Oh well.
That one's not as bad. That's probably
Yeah.
not as. So, uh, yeah. With this though, something that really stood out to me. I saw somebody else mention this, but something really stood out to me by the end of the second episode is this flash, and this is what helps when you do watch them all in a row. I did end up watching all three. I said I was only going to watch two, and then I was going to watch the third one the next day. Well, I had a lull in my day, and I was like, "Here comes episode 3. We're going to get it done." But Sauron has to kneel in front of Adar to get the crown onto his head.
Mm-hmm.
Then in episode 2, he has to kneel in front of Adar as Halbrand.
Yep.
Right? And this time, though, he has the upper hand. So the last time it's Adar that has the upper hand of, I'm going to get you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You are beholden to me right now, but I'm going to attack you. This time, it's the other way. And he even gets around it, right, when he says, like, I am when he's like
I am
kneeling.
beholden to the true king of Mordor.
Yes,
Yeah.
the true king of Mordor. Yes, and it is.
But it's me, bitch.
It's me exactly. It's me.
It's me, Austin. It
Very
was me all
reverse
along.
Flash. It was me, Barry. Right? Like it's and he's got that smile, and he's in the almost the same exact position that he had been in before, but now he has actually the upper hand. And it's one of my favorite parts about it is not just Charlie Vickers' portrayal of the character, all that kind of stuff, but it is so much fun to see the machinations of Sauron and how he's putting the pieces on the board to get to the point of where he needs to get it to. He ultimately still ends up defeated,
Mhm.
right, by Frodo. But just seeing how he is putting those pieces on the board to get one thing that really worked for me as we get to Sauron, as we continue, he moves on from this. He will end up going to Celebrimbor again, right? And he's playing with his ego. He's playing with Celebrimbor's ego of like, you're going to be known as the Lord of the Rings.
Mhm.
No, he won't. Sauron is the Lord of the Rings, right? Like it's but he plays to it. And I know there were some people before questioning, why are we just putting Charlie Vickers in another wig and giving him ears when it's supposed to be a shock that Anatar is Sauron? They did it perfectly for me, where
Yeah.
he knows he's caught by Galadriel and stuff, but
Mhm.
he gets to them before the messenger, and he gets to Celebrimbor. He weasels his way in and says, "You're right. I've been lying to you. I'm sorry. I'm actually Anatar, Lord of the Gifts."
Mhm.
Right? And it's like playing to that, but he's able to get in front of it. It's
Mhm.
like when you're playing Among Us or something, right?
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
have
yeah.
you have somebody who's gonna try. Somebody knows you're the imposter,
Yep.
but you you end up getting to the person that is the swing vote before they do, and you say,
Mhm.
"No, I look. I know I've been a little sketchy. I've been trying to make people think I'm the imposter. I'm not the imposter. I'm actually not. Trust me. I will never hurt you." And then that person buying it before somebody can out you. And that is
Mhm.
what he's done here with this. And I think it really works. Why it is Charlie Vickers again is because you can keep the grade A actor I feel like you have in that role, and you can make a way for it to still be a shock to Celebrimbor that it is Sauron when it's revealed. But for us, the viewer, you don't need that reveal again in season 2 of, oh, this character is Sauron as well.
Yeah.
That will seem a little redundant. So I
Mhm.
do think that they did it the best way they could.
It was also a good way of, so if they had cast somebody else and when he took this form it was just a completely different person, like Celebrimbor knows who Sauron is and he knows that he's taken all these forms over the years and stuff.
Yeah,
So if he
yeah.
had just undergone a total transformation, I feel like his, even though his ego is very much sort of his driving force in this moment, I feel like his spidey sense might have been up a little bit more to that. Galadriel's been talking about this evil guy who takes many forms, and this guy just totally changed everything. Like,
Well,
it just
I think sorry, I think the way that they would have done it if they did it by the book way would have been Halbrand not returning and just Anatar
mhm.
arriving as somebody else.
Yeah. Even
I
that
don't
one
think
though,
that works.
still.
I don't think that works for the viewer either.
No.
I just think the viewer would be like, "You guys pulled it again. This guy's Sauron now," and it just you can't keep pulling that same twist every year.
I
So
agree.
when he goes to Numenor eventually, and he's part of the downfall of Numenor, you're probably gonna have Charlie Vickers again. I don't think you're
Yeah.
gonna have another person where then you're mind blown of this guy is Sauron as well. Like you
Hmm.
can't pull that more than once.
Yep. And I love just how much like he's got his hand in every single pie here. He's using Celebrimbor's ego to get him to do what he wants. He's going to use the desperation of the dwarves with which knocking out the moonlight things, so they can't
Yes.
and which is ultimately going to lead to the Balrog and all that stuff. So that's going to be how he gets in with the dwarves. Use that sort of desperation. We know we've seen in trailers that the orcs are going to attack Eregion. So,
Yeah.
and we know, as you just mentioned, in Numenor he's going to be like doing stuff there. So he's low key behind like all of these little machinations that are going around all around the world right now, the world of this, Lord of the Rings. I always forget what the world itself is called. But
Yeah, because Middle Earth is literally just the middle part of the
it's like
Earth. There's
Westeros.
still
Yeah,
more. Yeah,
yeah.
there's still more there, but I think I don't think they have a word for it.
They
I guess just
do.
the world.
I just don't know it off the top of my head. But yeah, no, I think it shows it adds a lot of like depth to him and shows like how truly powerful he is. And he, by the way, he's doing all of this without like lifting a finger, so to speak. You know what I mean? He's not using his sheer power or anything like that. Like this is all just him being cunning and using his charisma, I guess, if you will. And it's really cool. I can't wait to see how it continues to play out the rest of this season. Also, side note, Celebrimbo might be my favorite name to say ever. It's like molasses off your tongue, Celebrimbo. I love it.
It is a nice name. I do think it's really good. There's a lot of those type of names in Tolkien, I think, where I read it and I'm like, I don't know how to say this, but then you hear it and you're like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's good.
Yep.
But also when he's outside in the rain and he's not leaving, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
says, isn't it typical, right? He says that to like Celebrimbor, like they haven't even bothered to tell you
Mm-hmm.
how it's worked after we did all the work to do it. Like
Yeah.
we're
Meanwhile,
forgotten.
he went and
Yeah.
killed the messenger. Literally
Yes.
killed the messenger.
Yep. Yeah. Don't shoot the messenger. Well, he did. Okay. Yeah. So that's really great to just see that. I can't speak more highly about what they're doing with him. And
Mhm.
like, his idea is to offer rings to the dwarfs and the men,
Humans. Yep.
right? He's going to want to offer it to men, and they know men are corruptible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's his whole plan is, corrupt the men so that way I can get them to fall in line with me. And,
And I think Numenor is
playing
how
right into it.
he's gonna use like I
Yeah.
think he's gonna use the destruction of Numenor like for the surviving humans that make it out, like who you assume is probably what's the one that's fighting with Miriel, Fazadon. I forget his name.
Farazan.
Farazan, yeah, I
Farazan.
hate
Yep.
him, so I just can't even. Yeah, but like all of them, the ones that end up surviving the Numenor thing, that's just going to be another. Well, it depends actually, because if they take the rings before that, then maybe the rings themselves could be what leads to the destruction of Numenor. But I think
so. Yeah.
I think it would be more interesting if it was the opposite, where like the Numenor is destroyed and Sauron finds a way to like pin it on the elves and then be like, oh, but all these rings can help you all get your revenge, sort of thing. I think that'd be an interesting kind of take on it. But I do, to your point, I think it'll probably be the former.
Yeah, because I don't think they'll have the destruction of Numenor until like season 4, if
Yeah.
they get that far.
Mhm.
And then that way you have the whole 5th season as maybe the last alliance with everybody going up against
Yes.
Sauron and stuff. Like I feel like that's probably the plan. And yeah, so with Sauron, anything else about Sauron before maybe we move on to
I mean,
other characters?
it was
Oh,
really cool.
when he killed the old guy, right? He befriended
Mm,
the animal, and then he set it up so that way he would kill the old
yeah,
man. I forget the old man's name, but which is funny because remember when he was pledging the Adar in season 1 thought he was Sauron.
yep. He was the one who had the little
He made
key below
Mordor.
his barn.
He created Mordor. He's the real lord of
Yeah,
Mordor.
and he won't even be there to see it. Bittersweet.
Yeah.
But also, it was just, I guess, just we should probably throw in the end of what was it, episode 3, where we see him forging or enchanting that dwarvish ring at the end, and we see the
Yes.
kind
Yeah.
of the runes going around it. So it was just another kind of cool thing to see as we kick off what's roughly the second half of the season.
Yeah, and what's great too is like if you look at the trailers, we do see Durin, the father,
Mm-hmm.
does get attached to that ring, and
Yep.
Durin, the son, is
Mm-hmm.
telling him to take it off. So we'll
Take it
start
off,
seeing that.
father. You got to take
Yes,
off the ring.
that's a
God,
great Durin.
I love him and Disa so much. Like literally would die for them.
Okay, so let's move on from Sauron. We got the big guy out of the way, I want to go to a totally different tonal switch for us. I want to
Okay.
go Poppy, Stranger, and
Hmm.
Nori.
Let's
So
do
let's
it.
go with them. Because I know they're, I guess, a controversial bunch, but I actually enjoyed the Harfoots quite a bit
Me too.
in season 1. And I love the Stranger and Nori's relationship. And I'm glad that the Stranger is going to get more stuff to do this season. Last season was a lot of like, I can't really talk well type thing. But
Who am
now he's
I?
gonna,
Yeah.
yeah, now he's really starting to get going.
Yep.
And we got to see some of the power he can wield when he has a staff and he has something to control it with. And I think we all know who this guy is. And this is one of the controversial parts as well,
Frodo.
because Gandalf is not actually, oh, yeah, Frodo. Gandalf is not actually around in the Second Age or this early. People called the Blue Wizards are usually who's around. For casual Tolkien fans who don't know who they are, it's going to hit more when they call him Gandalf. So I think that's the way they're leaning, and they're saying, "Look, I know that's not totally what is correct, but it's an adaptation, and I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with it, and I think he's doing a hell of a job as Gandalf if that's what he's going to be able to do. Um, but I really enjoy their story so far. I really wonder where they're going to go. We do see in trailers he is going to be the one who talks to Tom Bombadil,
Mm-hmm.
as he's finally going to get an adaptation in live action.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess your thoughts on the Stranger, and do you think he's Gandalf?
Well, yes, obviously. My only question is how long they wait to give us that. Like, the smart thing I think to do would just to be at the end of this season, kind of establish it and then just get it out of the way. It would feel a little draggy if, like, even though he would be doing other stuff as the seasons progress and stuff, to still have that lingering, like, and just having to call him the Stranger, like, it's like,
Like
oh,
season 5, be like, yeah, when are they going to reveal the
yeah,
Stranger as
yeah. Like,
Gandalf?
I
Yeah,
just hope they don't take that long with it, but I've enjoyed it. It seems, um, I don't want to say it seems the most straightforward of all the stories we've seen so far, but it kind of is. It's basically him and Nori and Poppy. They're heading out to follow this star map and find a place where he can sort of hone and craft his powers. And he keeps having these sort of like ethereal visions of staffs and stuff. So ultimately, we know that's what he's working towards. Because even the staff that he picked up and used in episode 3, it like disintegrated after he does that big, kind of wind sandstorm thing. So I think that very much throughout the last 2 episodes of this season, it's going to be about like essentially him finding a conduit that can hold and channel his powers. But now we have
yeah.
this whole other thing with this God, what's his name? I saw it in the the guy with the mask, the brass is like Brack or
Oh
something.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Brank, Brank. So he looked really cool, and now we've got this whole, we have, is he Gandalf or is he the Stranger? Who is he over here? And then we have this other new wizard who it's like, is he Saruman? Like, just
Yeah,
because
is he
they,
Saruman or somebody else? Yeah. Because another popular pick for Gandalf for the Stranger was Saruman. People
mm,
kept thinking maybe he's Saruman as a little
mm,
twist.
yeah,
Instead, I don't know if I would ultimately like that as much because Saruman becomes a dick. Like,
yeah,
by the time I know it's thousands of years from now, but I would
mm,
be like, he ends up like being a real dick. Like, I
yeah,
don't know if I want the Stranger to become that. And I
yeah,
do think the safe pick is Gandalf because he is somebody that will. I think this is a way you can set up how he has an affection for uh
the hobbits,
for the smaller folk, right?
yeah,
Is Harfoots are, prerequisites to hobbits, and
mm,
you can say why he's so fond of them
yeah,
is why he looks out for them, is because of they're the ones that kind of helped him when he landed into this world get to where he needed to be. And I think that's a really much stronger story part than it being Saruman.
mm,
Um, Now, people thinking the Dark Wizard, who is Syrian Hines, right,
mm.
is um
Saruman.
Saruman.
They're very much, at the very least, they're trying to make you think he is, because he looks like the
The white
hair is
with the
perfect.
black in the
Yeah,
beard. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And the
But
way
does
he
that
kind
make
of does
sense? Because
he
he's
does
like,
kind of like the reverse. So we see that Gandalf or the stranger turns those he calls them acolytes, but like those witches, like he turns them into butterflies, and then this evil wizard essentially just does the opposite, returns them from that sort of like spectral butterfly form back into what they were. So kind of just doing the opposite of the stranger, I feel like is also trying to lead us down that path.
yeah, you're right. They are called acolytes as well. We're very familiar with. So we got acolytes and we got the stranger.
Oh jeez.
But this
Not
one got a
again.
season 2. This one got a season 2.
Yeah.
So
We are
I
not
did want
those
to.
kind of people, by the way.
No, no, we're not. No, we enjoyed the acolyte. You can
Yeah.
follow that on the Pod Awakens.
Yeah.
I just like poking fun now. But
Yes. Yes.
um, it's funny though because when they had revealed in the acolyte his name, they were going to call him the stranger. My mind immediately went to this guy instead. I was like, no, I already have a character called the stranger.
He pulls off the
Like,
mask and it's him. Crossover, baby.
fool of a took, right? So does Saruman make sense though? Because did he start evil? I'm trying. I'm racking my mind because he's called a dark wizard, and he does have some like nefarious things here. And usually the Ishtar, which are what they are, Ishtari, right, are usually people that are good that are here to fight against Sauron,
Mhm.
and he just gets corrupted.
Yeah.
I'm trying to search in my mind here though of like old Saruman before he becomes the white, if he was a little corrupted back then, but I can't actually
So the way that
unless if it's like
I'm kind of squaring it up in my head, it reminds me a lot of another character in this show, Isildur. So we know that
yes.
Isildur is going to end up being the one that chops the fingers off of Sauron and all that good stuff. But they've kind of, and then afterwards, he's going to become corrupted by the ring, and then there's all that stuff. But they've kind of started him in a place, right? In this show where I don't want to say he was kind of like the bumbling idiot, but in a little bit of a way, he kind of was a bit of a kind of a bumbling idiot in some ways. And it seems like they're going to sort of send him down that like hero's path before ultimately his story is going to end how we know it ends. So it's like he starts in one place and then he makes a lot of progression and then he's going to like backslide from just the stuff that we already know has been established in the movies. So I'm wondering if they're going to do the same thing with Saruman, because we already know as far as like source material and sticking to that, that's basically out the window with this whole straight
Yeah.
Gandalf thing. So I'm wondering if they're going to start this wizard out as like being bad. Then he has his encounters with the stranger. Maybe that ends up kind of turning him towards the good side, and then things happen as they happen in the movies, where he gets corrupt, he's good, then he gets corrupted by Sauron, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that'd be interesting because we do know eventually they become friends, right? Saruman. So maybe this is like the beginning of their friendship, right?
Yeah.
Like they've realized, oh wait, you're both Istari. Like
Yeah.
maybe we should,
Mhm.
But originally the acolytes were trying to join Sauron.
Yeah, true. Maybe it's tough. I don't know. Like again, maybe it's a thing
Yeah.
where they're looking to like harness his power for their own kind of thing, and like again, maybe it's the whole point of this and introducing him in this sort of negative way. Him, if this was Saruman, by introducing him in a negative way before then kind of turning him to the good side, is just to show that he's got a predisposition for being hungry with power. If his whole mission to start this is he's looking for Sauron so he can harness his power and do whatever he's going to do to take over Middle Earth or whatever sort of thing. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's just as simple as they kind of want to show you a little bit of his bad side before they go into the good. Because otherwise, like you,
Yeah.
I'm racking my brain. That's just me throwing stuff at the wall. That's not a great guess.
It'd be interesting to see how they do it. I'm open to anything. I really am. I'm not gonna be like that's not how it was in the books or the movies. It's
Yeah.
just trying to. If I'm going to speculate stuff, I'm speculating off of the material I know, and it's like, well, does this fit, right? And it's like, how will they do this? They might surprise us with stuff. We'll see.
Yep.
But yeah, ultimately really open to most things because it's the fun of adaptations. I don't want to know everything by the book really because it's
Yeah.
like, what am I watching for then?
Yeah.
I feel
The
like
Game of Thrones
sometimes,
thing, man. Same thing with
yeah, if
Star
I'm
Wars.
sitting there watching it the whole time, I'd be like, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. It's also,
Yeah.
am I actually enjoying anything then? No,
Yeah.
not really.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. I'm with you 100%.
All right. So not really much to talk about them. He did, like you said, broke the staff, right? And Nori and Poppy are blown away somewhere. So I guess we'll find the resolution of that. I'm thinking that might be how Bombadil comes
Yeah.
into this story
Hmm.
as well. Um, but yeah, so that's mostly our story on the stranger, Poppy, and Nori.
Yeah. Like I said, it's been very straightforward so far. We're kind of in a holding pattern right now where we're just waiting to see how this connects to the dark wizard story of it all.
Yeah. All right. What character do we want to go to next? Do we want to go to Elrond, Galadriel? You want to do those?
Yeah, it seems like the next best place to go.
All right. So we go to Elrond and Galadriel. They start off with each other chasing each other
Mhm.
as Elrond has the rings, Galadriel wants the rings. And Elrond is very, hey, he figured out the Sauron thing too, right? And that is maybe not the Sauron thing specifically at first, but he knew that somebody was up. And that was like at the end of season 1, he goes off to find where Galadriel went and he finds the scroll that shows that the Southlands line has ended.
Hmm.
And he put the pieces together. I don't think he knew it was Sauron at that point, but he goes and he sees that the rings are almost done at that point. There's little he can do.
Yeah.
He then will find out it is Sauron, and his whole point to Galadriel is how can we trust these rings when Sauron had a hand in creating them? He may not have touched them. It may have been all Celebrimbor, but he showed Celebrimbor how to do this type of stuff. He was with, as he says, he was with Celebrimbor for days or weeks, like making this stuff. Like how can we trust this? And I think he's got to be the only sensible person in Middle Earth.
Hmm. Him and Durin, because Durin kind of sniffs it out too that it's
Yeah,
a little funky.
and they're best friends, so it makes sense.
I know Elrond would never say something nice like that about me, or whatever the hell he says.
That sounds so Mario at the end there.
Yeah, about the me. Oh man. Yeah, no, it's really interesting, and I find myself kind of going back and forth on. I really loved Galadriel in the first season, but what we've seen so far, I'm struggling a little bit to get my arms around the character in this season. Like I don't know like what her intentions are, like because you're right, she should absolutely like her whole big thing was chasing down Sauron, and Sauron's the worst, and Sauron's evil. And now, like, she's like, all right, this ring's actually kind of pretty nice. And it just, I don't know. I get that they're trying to sort of paint the picture that Sauron is just that good at influencing and like, making it because the main reason the elves are wearing these rings, right, is because the tree was dying and they need to sort of uh, keep themselves alive in Middle Earth, so to speak. So that otherwise they would all have to leave to go back to Valinor. So it just, I don't know. Like, I think they may have gone a little too quickly with people just being so receptive of the rings, especially Gil-galad. He's all over the place. I got no clue what the deal with that guy is. I'm almost at the point where I feel like there's more to him like that we don't know. Like he's in with Sauron or something like that. And again, I don't know the source material, but they have shown that they're willing to change it. But I don't know. Like the whole Galadriel, Gil-galad, Elrond thing. Again, to your point, Elrond's the only one that's got his head on straight. But it feels like they should be a little more weary of this thing overall. But I guess maybe it shows the elven hubris. I don't know.
I think, yeah, I think that's what it is. So what I have is, I don't think Galadriel is corrupted yet. I don't think she's actually influenced by the rings. I think her
Which is weird.
thought
She's
is,
wearing one.
yeah, but I think her thought is, I know that Sauron helped create these. I know that. But the power is going to. So mainly, it's kind of what Gil-galad says, right? Is where he says, "Look, regardless, this heals the tree. That
Mhm.
buys us more time,
Yeah.
and we don't leave the people of Middle Earth defend against Sauron by themselves." And I
Feels like
think that is
bullshit, by the
kind
way.
of what.
I think on Gil-galad's part, I think that's bullshit. I don't think he cares at
Uh,
all.
I do think he does care, but it's like I think that's kind of what they're trying to get across here is look, we're desperate. This tree, like we're actually packed up. We're about to move.
Mm.
And now you're telling me he's actually Sauron. We cannot leave, which means we have one option. The
That's fair.
rings. Then we can figure out after that how to defeat him. So I do think it's part of the hubris, as you said, because I think part of it is like we're not really going to get affected, but we got to be able to help the people of Middle Earth and
Mhm.
stop him. And Elrond's kind of at the point of we can't trust this,
Yeah.
and he goes to somebody that he can trust, and he goes to Círdan,
Here done.
right? And some of his background in the books is like he's one of the first elves that it came over from Valinor. He builds these ships, and he usually, like, from what I understand, is he usually wants to go back to Valinor, but then will always have a reason to be like, oh, I'll let those other people go before me, type of thing.
Oh, okay.
And he just continues to push it back and back and back, and he's been there for thousands of years just doing that. So he's a very trustworthy guy. I saw some speculation that when the water hits and he does not, it forces him to not drop them in the water, that this is intervention by a god named Olmo,
Mm.
which
Interesting.
is one of the Aratar who are responsible for the control over the oceans.
Okay, so is that like one of the Valar? Is he one of
Uh,
the Valar?
so he's one of the Vala. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the Valar. Yeah. Okay. So he is responsible for the oceans. And people think because of the ripple tide, like forcing him to drop it, that it stopped him. And this guy, this Valar Olmo, is one of the ones that was a big reason responsible for the fall of Morgoth. So he already took out Morgoth. So I do think if that's true, it is showing that maybe the forces above do think that the rings are integral
Mhm.
to taking down Sauron. And I guess technically they are, because if
We
you
know
play
they
out the
are.
Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings,
Yeah.
right? They
At
will
the end
win.
of the day, it's going to take
They
a
will win.
while, but we know it's almost like I'm trying to think of a good comparison, but one of those, like, if you do anything to stray off of this path, it's gonna.
Mhm.
Is that like a Marvel thing? Like, I'm trying to think of where it would. Yeah, okay. Like Doctor Strange, when Tony has to give Thanos
Yes.
when it gives him the time stone, he's like, "Why'd you do that? There was no other way." Maybe it's kind of like that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's like, look, because we need the elves here. We need the
Mhm.
elves to help. And then we ultimately need the one ring to be created so we can
Mhm.
cast it into the fire to finally end Sauron. It's like this domino effect that
Yep.
needs to happen, I guess.
100%.
So that's what some people are speculating that water thing is, and that makes so much more sense than just like luck of, oh, actually now I'm corrupted because I saw them and they are beautiful. Let me go
Yeah,
bring them.
because that's
Like,
like to present this character as somebody who Elrond of all people is coming to for
yeah,
like
yeah,
sage counsel. They're presenting him in a way where he's super wise. So to do that and then just instant corruption, it would have felt very like, all right, because like in your head you can see like where they would have been like, oh, by introducing this wise character and then having him instantly be corrupted just kind of shows the power of the rings. But it would have been like, come on. Like I think that
yeah,
your
yeah.
your takes, what you saw on social media, is way better.
Yeah, so I think that might be what it is. And who knows if they'll ever actually spell it out that way, but the way that it works with the water being the one to have stopped it, and this guy was the big reason Morgoth was defeated, it's like, all right, Morgoth was defeated, then Sauron took his place. He has a role in this. This makes sense. I think it can work. And I think that is probably the way that they are going. A little bit of intervention there by the Valar.
Mhm. So how do you feel about Galadriel, though, just before we kind of move on from this little section? Because, like, again, Gil-galad, I still feel like there's some stuff there that we don't know that might be revealed. And Elrond seems pretty steadfast and, like, we have to be careful here. Like, whereas Galadriel just feels like she's flip-flopping, which is something that I didn't really get from her in the first season. And I feel like it's kind of affected my enjoyment of the character a little bit, I would say.
I think it's too early to tell in this season right now, but I think ultimately she will be proven right in the sense of I don't think she's corrupted, right? So I think it's like she's playing the long game and she's trying to explain it to Elrond, but he's just not getting it. He's just not getting it because he's like, it's too risky. And she's like, I know, but this is the way, this is the path. It's like that friend that you have that is always right about something and it annoys you. And you're like, what if you're wrong about this? And you're like, no, I am right. All right. I am right. And you're like, but this time it doesn't seem like you're right. Like you're heading down a path I can't follow. You're Padme telling Anakin that. But it's Anakin being like, no, like, trust me. I got this. I do think Galadriel will kind of prove that she is still very anti Sauron. It's not like she's going to go and like start making out with Halbrand or Anatar and stuff. But
I hope not. God, I fucking hope not.
There's a lot of shippers out there.
Oh, I'm sure there's
a lot of shippers out there.
You could probably find Durin and Elrond shippers out there. You could find a shipper for any combination of two characters.
So I don't know. I think right now it's just been one note from her this season because it's just the same conflict for her of no, Elrond, you're wrong. I'm right. We got to try.
Yeah.
And I think the best thing that happened with this is when she goes to Elrond and says, hey, the only way they're going to let me, Gil-galad's going to let me do this is if you agree to join my party. And we're going to go out and we're going to try to make sure that Celebrimbor is fine and we get there before any weird stuff happens. And Elrond doesn't agree, but he takes that back to Gil-galad and pretty much forces it to be where he's in charge of the party. And I thought that twist was so much fun. It worked for me so well. And I was like, yes, this is what I want to see. I wanted to see him like flip that on its head. And it's at the end of episode 2. That's funny. They're not in episode 3 at all, those characters. But he's able to flip it instead where she's like, oh, you agreed to join. And, Gil-galad's like, no, you misunderstand. This is Elrond who will lead it.
You're agreeing to join. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I got like goosebumps. I was like, hell yeah, Elrond. Because he's like my favorite hero in the show right now. So seeing him be able to be like, you know what? She needs me to go, but I'm not going to be led by her because I don't trust what's going on right now. And he's able to flip it to be, I want final say on stuff. I think is a really good move from Elrond.
And I think judging by what we've seen in trailers and the preview for this week, there's going to focus at least a decent amount of the episode on that party, like getting to
Eregion.
Yeah. That's going to happen a lot, by the way, folks, in this show. I have a tendency to do that. Like sometimes my brain ain't firing as fast as anyway. So I think there's a really cool opportunity there to shine a light on the conflict between the two, like kind of as they're along in the journey. It seems like we're going to get some really cool scenes in that part too. There's like some undead ghost kind of stuff, maybe some back to the undead army from Return of the King and all that stuff. So who knows?
Yeah. All right. Let's move on from Galadriel and Elrond and get to kind of like, I think characters we haven't really talked about yet, and most of them are in episode 3, but let's go quickly. Durin and Diza. They don't have a lot to work with so far this season, but Durin's not talking with his father right now, and they're kind of like they're like having to fend for themselves on food and stuff, right? Like they're kind of cut out at this point. And Diza's mainly just trying to get both Durins to apologize to each other. And it's not until Durin gets the invite from Celebrimbor that he's able to kind of work with his dad a bit and say, look, I don't really trust this, but this is something I want to bring to your attention. Here it is. And we do see at the end that they, will get the ring.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I very much so. Like I said before, I love Durin and Disa. They're great. They're very much the heart of the show. And they're just another one. We're kind of in a waiting pattern right now because we know that it's going to end with the Durins making up and they're going to take these rings and all that stuff. And we're kind of at this point. We're just waiting for the Balrog incident. And I will say it is kind of cool because I could be wrong about this, but as far as I understand, the explanation for like the Balrog breaking free and all that stuff was kind of surface level. It was just the elves dug too deep because they were greedy and they unleashed it. Like to have this whole Sauron like kind of influence into it too, I think just adds another fun layer to that and makes it a little more palatable and not just so like, yeah, the elves or the dwarves were greedy and they dug a little too far. Womp womp. I feel like having just this be another tentacle of the Sauron beast, I feel like is a cool idea.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's something that is going on with them. I wish we would have got more from them so far, but I think we will as the season goes. But they are a very strong part of the ensemble at this point.
The chemistry between the actor, just to the between the actors, it's great. Like you could literally picture them being like an old married couple in real life. It's great.
Yeah, so the goal here, right, for me is if we get to season 5 and we get to the Last Alliance and stuff, I want to see like Durin with Isildur, with Arondir, with Elrond, Galadriel. Like I want all of these heroes that have been separated for a bit and I've only interacted a little bit. I want them all together with the stranger, and taking on Sauron. Like I feel like that will be some payoff after just having so much building where these characters are so much separated at times. So we've gotten that with Elrond and Durin. It's cool, but I want to start seeing Durin interacting with different characters. Like I think that'd be fun.
Kind of like the same vibe of like the first time in Game of Thrones when we see Jon and Dany on screen together. It's like, whoa.
Oh,
like,
I was thinking more Tyrion teaming up with Dany. And
same,
like,
same thing.
You're like, my favorite guy is going over to the other team. Like that is, it's like a trade. It's like the Seven Kingdoms have traded Tyrion to
I will give you Tyrion. You give me. Yes.
For a pick to be named later. Okay, so Isildur. And we'll go Isildur into Elendil because that'll kind of wrap up the rest of them, right? So,
well, you mean Aaron? Oh yeah, well we've got the whole Arondir and
So we'll go Isildur into Arondir and there and Theo, but then like because Elendil thinks Isildur is dead, that'll tie over to their family in Numenor, and we'll wrap the show up from there. So I think that works pretty cool.
Perfect.
We get another kind of at the start of episode 3, we kind of get something similar to episode 1, but with a better character. Okay, so this is all a flashback of Beric, the horse, and I'm just kidding. I love Sauron, but I was just like, oh yeah, Beric. I was so excited to get Beric like following him.
You're like, I saw.
Elendil just sent him away, and I'm like, oh my god, here he goes.
I saw the funniest meme about that. It was Beric the horse. It was the call an ambulance, but not for me.
Not for me.
With the orcs, so funny.
Oh yeah, I was so scared for him.
Me too.
Again, animals, and then like when he's in the cave, and he's getting little spiders on him, I'm like, no, like no, Beric, just run, leave Isildur.
It's funny though, because it almost feels like Isildur is on like the mythical Lord of the Rings character like speed run. Like we got a little bit of the Shelob, the spider. We got the tree people now at the end of episode 3. It's like he's just going to encounter all of the mythical creatures in the Lord of the Rings universe.
Yes, and this is Shelob's cave. Shelob is she's the little spider that is the one that he originally fights off. She's not the big guy.
Oh really? I didn't even know.
Yeah,
I just would have assumed she was. Yeah.
No, she's a little babe at this point, Shelob. So from what we understand, she is the one that he fought off in this episode. But yeah, so he's kind of got the Frodo thing going on where he is kind of knocked out, got wrapped up in web, and Beric just goes up to him and is like, dude, I'm getting you out of here.
Yeah.
And ultimately, a goblin is also wakes up and is like, oh, I'll decide to have my meal here in front of the spiders. And they fight. Oh, dude, the one kill Beric had, by the way, where he just kicks the goblin into the pike or whatever. I was like,
Oh
oh
my
my God.
Yes. I was like, let's go.
I just, you know what? This would be like, I wish I could get inside the head of like Beric the horse, where like, imagine when Isildur doesn't throw the ring in, and Beric's like, I did not go through all of this
Yeah.
for you to not throw this ring in the goddamn mountain, all right?
He's like holding his hoof up to his arm, trying to get it like off his hand.
He just like kicks him into the fire instead. He's like, boom, I'm taking care of that. Thank you.
Amazing.
But yeah, so Isildur gets out of the cave, it kind of goes to the dead marshes, right? It's got to be the dead marshes. You got the dead people in the marsh, and he like, I guess, steals their clothes.
Mm.
But he finds a woman who ends up attacking him.
Mm-hmm.
And her name is I had it here. I thought.
Oh shoot!
Starts with it. Starts with an A.
Yeah, it does. Where the hell is it? I had it. Wow, we are
Astrid.
Astrid. There we go. I kept going. Adar, as my mind was going. It's like,
yes, I know. I'm like Adar, Aragon, like Aragorn. I'm like thinking of all these names. But he finds a woman, Astrid, who ends up stabbing him, and she's gonna help him with the wound. They had a great banter back and forth, actually, of like, no, you're not supposed to pull it out when you're stabbed. She's like, well, I've never been stabbed.
So we
yeah,
know.
well, thanks. So far we don't know how much we can trust her here. But they run into an old man, and Isildur. This is kind of what they call in screenwriting, like save the cat.
Yes.
Okay, so it's to show that the hero is a hero, right? And the way you do that is have them save a cat. In this case, he's being told, don't help this man. And he says, I'm going to help the man. I'm going to feed him. Let's at least give him an apple. And this guy is a total jerk and starts attacking him. I get it, but also if I'm that guy, it's like sometimes just take the win.
Yeah.
You got the apple.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going hungry now, all right?
Well,
find somebody else.
That was never they were never worried about that. They were
I know.
But yeah, no,
yeah,
it was. Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so they end up attacking and trying to take Beric the horse. They do end up taking Beric. But yeah, so we see on the old man, he's got the mark of is this Adar's mark or is this Sauron's?
I believe it's Sauron's, right? Because
that's what I thought. But then like later people say something about the mark of Adar. So I didn't know.
Maybe. Because we know that the mark itself is actually just like it's essentially leading towards Mordor, right?
It's the thing that Galadriel found in the library over in Numenor.
Yeah. So it might actually be Adar, because like knowing that the Mordor is where the orcs end up calling their home and all that stuff, maybe. So I'm not exactly sure on that. I was operating under the assumption that it was just the mark of Sauron, but
yeah, I guess we'll have to wait to see how it goes. I called it the mark of Sauron in my notes, but then later at some point they mentioned Adar, and they were branding people, I think, on Adar's thing. So I think it is Adar's mark.
It is Adar. Yep, you're right.
So, and they are the ones taking humans in and saying, work with us. So I do think it is Adar's mark, but it is, we were taught it was Sauron in season 1 with the logo look,
Yeah. I also do think, though, that the Astrid thing is totally an intentional misdirect. It was just kind of meant to be one of those things that kind of leaves you, it's like the cliffhanger thing. But I do think
it's the ones I saw coming. I saw this coming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I think it's going to be one of those things where it's like she escaped and she didn't know if Isildur was like part of them at first, and sort of just kind of like intentionally keeping her identity vague and all that stuff. I think if she was a baddie and she was with those, the people that tried to like
They would have outed
kidnap
her or
them,
something.
yeah, just she would have helped them in that moment. So I think she escaped from them, and that's where that's going to go. I don't think it's going to be this big. I've been fooling you the whole time. I also don't think they would give us that right off the rip if that was the case. They would, let us kind of grow to trust her and like her, and then maybe pull the rug out from us a few episodes from now. So I think it was very much a red herring sort of thing.
What do we think for her betrothed, right? She's trying to meet up with her betrothed. Is it somebody we know?
See, I think that's bullshit too. I think it's
Yeah,
all a
I think
cover
she's
story.
lying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think she just wants to get to forget what the place is called, but she just wants to get there to be free of the orcs, and that's kind of just a cover story she's using right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Because she yeah, whatever it was called. It starts with a P, right? And they
Yeah,
all end up there
yeah,
together with. Arondir, by the way, has this badass hero moment, comes in, saves the day, and Isildur's like, hey, it's me, Isildur, thanks. And Arondir's just pretty much like, all right, whatever, dude.
see ya. Yeah, I
Yeah.
got shit to do.
Doesn't even stop to talk. He's like walking, like, yeah, sounds good. I'll see you later.
Ugh. And I guess we could just kind of move on to him because, like, what
Yeah.
the F? Like, totally went into this episode being like, yes, him and Bronwyn was like one of my favorite parts of the first season. Can't wait to see more. And just instantly, just nope, she's not here anymore. And I understand it was a
Yeah.
actress decided to leave the show thing, so we're not gonna
Yeah.
crap on the.
Yeah, because I saw your tweet and I was like, maybe I'll have to bring that up on the show to let them
Mhm.
know that it wasn't like that we're cutting dead weight here. But
Yeah,
um yeah, she apparently didn't want to be part of it. If people are listening along and didn't know that, she just wanted to, I think she's stepping back from acting for a bit or something.
yeah, that's what they said. Yep.
Which is odd. It's like, why did take a big role in this production before
Yeah.
that? But whatever.
Same
Yeah.
thing with the guy who played Adard. He was Benjen Stack in Game of Thrones, but it was like,
Yes. Yeah.
and I do like the new guy. I think he's very good. But it
He's
was like,
done well. Yeah, he's done
I
well.
really liked that dude. I really did.
Lots of Game of Thrones crossover with this. Also, they moved production. This was season 1 was in New Zealand, season 2 is in the UK. So they moved production, which is helping them get some of these bigger names, I think, because
Yeah.
like Syrian Hines and who else am I blanking on? That just got, the person that plays Tom Bombadil are both like English actors who have or like live in that area and stuff. So it's probably like easier for them to get there than like New Zealand.
Mhm.
So they're probably going to be able to get more like British stage actors, British actors that can come in, and it'll be easy for them to come in and shoot stuff and not be like, oh, I have to fly all the way to New Zealand. I got to do this, that. Like a little easier for them to get people for like, hey, you're already filming something in the UK. Come here for a day, film
Yeah.
this thing, and type of thing. So
Well, if they're in the UK, they should try to get Sir Ian McKellen to join the cast. I'm sure he'd love to be in Lord
yeah,
of the Rings. You know?
yeah. He says he doesn't want anybody else to be Gandalf. So
Nobody tell him. Nobody tell him.
hey, so far he's just the stranger. Okay.
So far, yeah, so far.
Though I think Nori said something about Gand.
Yeah.
Or something.
I missed that.
Yeah, like I don't know if it's a name or something, or like or that's the name for the stick or whatever. So it's gonna be like literally
Oh,
like
okay.
Gandalf or so. Maybe they come up with that name because of that or something. But
Mhm.
I kind of missed it too. But people keep saying it online. That like she said Gand, and it's like I
Okay.
have to go back and
Yeah,
rewatch
I'm
that part.
gonna have to double check that one too.
But yeah, so Arondir, kind of a bummer in this episode. He doesn't do much. He is going through some stuff. He ends up burning Bronwyn's body. She had died off screen, like you mentioned, because I'd rather that than recast and then kill her or whatever they would have
Yeah.
done. I don't know what they would have done. All they had to do was show that flashback of him thinking of her face, and you're like, all right, that's her. Good.
Mhm.
We're done. We have Theo taking part of it. Theo's a savage, dude.
Fucking
We
hate
get
it.
him
So annoying.
Theo talking to Rondir, and Rondir is like giving him advice. He's like, I don't know my father, but I do know it's not you. And it's like, damn,
Yeah, like
dude, what the
such a
hell?
dick. Like Arondir was the one who like practically dedicated his life to trying to help Bronwyn and
Yes.
him live. Because I think they would have died way before this if if Arondir
Oh
wasn't
yeah, yeah.
there, like probably in the second episode of the show. So like I just I am having a really tough time gelling with like teenage angsty Theo here, especially knowing like you're not the only one who lost somebody here, dude. Like
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
obviously a very important part of Arondir's life, and he's trying to, still be there for you and give you advice and like be a parental figure for you, knowing that she's not here anymore, and you're just being a giant baby about it. And I know he's young, and when you're young, it's tough to process emotions and all that stuff, but it feels a little too on the nose of the teenage angsty thing, and it just I don't know if there's ever going to be a
Well,
point where I like the character. I'm going to be
he's
honest.
definitely people keep thinking he's going to be given one of the rings and become a Nazgul or something.
You think?
Like the way he's so easily like already like moody and it could easily be corrupted. He was almost corrupted with the sword. Like
Yeah,
he could easily be one of the ones that fall.
it wouldn't
As
shock
one of
me.
the 9 men. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't shock me at all.
But yeah, so Theo and Isildur go to save Beric, and Theo gets picked up and taken away, and it seems to be maybe, as people are speculating, and as I was speculating, oh, the Ents. We know the Ents are in here.
Mhm,
We're actually going to see the Ent wives as well, which were already dead by the time we get to Lord of the Rings. So
mhm.
we will see the Ents and Ent wives. It'll be cool to see how they look. I think they briefly appear in a trailer that
They
we'd
do.
seen. Um, a little bit of a different look than the movies, so it'll be
Yeah.
cool to see how they pull that off for this show.
Mhm,
Um, but yeah, so Astrid has the mark of Adar as well, and that's what these people are talking about. It's like I think he shows one of the marks as well, right? Theo does, to say, "Hey, I'm part of you guys," as he's trying to
yeah.
do his cover here
Well,
while
he
they're
doesn't have the marks. He just has the sort of points where he kept
yes,
sticking the key into his arm.
yeah, yeah.
And they're like, "Nope, you're a horrible liar, kid. We see right through you immediately."
Yep, yep. And then we have Isildur getting Beric free, and
Mhm.
that's
I
kind of
just
where
I
we
just
leave them.
I'm a little nervous because I don't know what they do with Arondir now. Like I feel like the whole thing with Bronwyn was probably like a big part of where his story was going to go, and now I'm just like, we've got Isildur paired with Theo, and we've got all this other stuff going on. It's like I'm almost like struggling to see where he fits, and that scares me because that means he could be a good candidate to die, which I don't want because I
I
think
think
he's
he's
really great.
I, I don't know. I think he's actually freed up to do whatever now.
Yeah, well, he is.
I actually like this for him a bit more than just being like the central love story. Like I think he's freed up to be able to be a free player. He might just take it upon himself to say, I'm going to continue overseeing these people, and then
Mhm,
eventually these people will get matched up with uh maybe Isildur goes back to him and we have Isildur and Arondir with Theo as a team. Like I think
probably.
that could be interesting. And then, Isildur having I don't know if Isildur gets back to Numenor anytime soon. So he might not at all. He might stay here, right?
Mhm,
Like he might stay in Middle Earth because he'd have to find a ship to get over to Numenor. He might end up being having to stay here, and with those humans might be the best spot for him.
mhm,
And then this might be kind of how he positions himself to become like one of the kings, right?
mhm.
One of the lord to get the ring at a certain point.
Yep.
And having an elf next to you that can help be like almost like your hand, like the right hand, I think could be a really cool combo.
Mhm. Yeah, no, they
So hopefully.
definitely could. And knowing now that Theo's been taking everything, it seems logical that he'll probably be the one to help him and just all that stuff.
Yeah. And then
Oh,
Theo will finally be like, Arondir, you're cool.
yeah.
I was
Although
just
I
upset my mom died, is pretty much
yeah,
what it is.
yeah. Although I love the idea of just not seeing Arondir for like 6 episodes, and then we go back to Back End with all the Harfoots, and he's just like there eating second breakfast with them. He's like, "Hey guys,
Yeah. I
enjoy
decided to
retirement."
leave there. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right, so we
Numenor,
yeah, this is kind of the last
Pharazôn,
one.
Elendil, Iarian. Right. We have all these characters here.
Yeah.
Um, so I was a little shocked by the Iarian stuff of her being immediately on Team Pharazôn
Hmm.
here. I know she was like friends with Pharazôn's like page. I don't know what to call him, like whatever he was. Um,
Wire.
yeah, Squire. Yeah. So, especially when you have Elendil being a friend of an elf,
Yeah.
and you have Iarian just being so pro anti elf, I guess, because she shows the Palantir to them and says this is what the queen was using, and they're Farazan sets this up. He's like, oh, no true Numenorian would use an elven item like that. There must be a mistake. And then the
Yeah.
queen owns up to it.
Yeah.
And the tide starts turning a bit here on the queen region as it's her coronation.
Yeah.
It's her coronation here. And it turns into the coronation of Farazan. Pretty much. I don't know how this will work out, but Farazan in the books is one of the kings of Numenor that will end up there's like numerous kings that keep kind of putting it down the wrong path. They keep making mistakes. I think they're consolidating that guy into one with
Yeah.
Farazan,
Yeah.
because of the time skips and stuff. So he'll probably be the main king here that ends up steering it towards destruction. And this is kind of the first step of it here with Iarian speaking out. Elendil's trying to get quiet. He's trying to get everybody on board here, but a scuffle breaks out, and then the eagle arrives, and Farazan approaches it. People's chanting his name, and that's kind of where we're at with Numenor. Is it seems like maybe the queen is getting dethroned.
Yeah. And I've got to be honest with you, of all the stories, this is probably the one that is resonating with me the least so far. I don't know if it's just because it's so far off in its own island, literally, but it just,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm struggling to find a reason to care as it relates to the rest of the story. And I know that they'll find a way to bring it, you've talked about how he ends up being one of the kings that brings it down and or ends up indirectly bringing it down, so to speak. So like, I know we'll get there eventually, but I just, even like the characters, I don't really relate with them too much. I also think that's probably why we won't see Isildur back here, just because it's like, where does he even fit into this whole thing that
Yeah.
they're setting
Yep.
up now? But it just, I don't know, man. I'm willing to obviously kind of see where it goes, but right now I'm just kind of having a tough time. It feels like it's a story that's only there to fill up time and like to make these hours feel beefier, an hour long or such. But with that said, I mean, it was a very intricate kind of thing on Farazan's part to set this all up. I'm curious to see, because there's no way that eagle just coming in like that just happened and it was like happenstance. I'm
Yeah,
curious
it's
to know
weird.
how yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to know how the hell they set that up. There's got to be some kind of bigger power at play, some kind of magic. So I'm interested to see in that regard. But besides from that, I've got to admit, yeah, I've just had a bit of a tough time sort of resonating with this section of the story.
I I think I enjoyed Numenor in season 1 a lot.
Yes.
This so far, we've only gotten to this one episode. I'm curious to see where it goes. I really liked actually Isildur's friend sticking up for the queen and
Yes.
saying, "I bled on the battlefield with her." Like, do not talk smack about her.
Mm-hmm.
I do think this might get a little interesting if there is scuffles between supporters of the Queen Regent and Farazan.
Yeah.
Um,
What
so
are
I
they
think
called?
that'd be
Like
cool.
the chosen or the gold? There's like that sect of elves on Numenor
Right,
who
right.
are like. So yeah, there's definitely going to be some Civil War type stuff going on here.
And then we also have just I love Elendil and I love the actor that plays him. So it's like, yes, let's get him more stuff to do because I think he's great.
He
Um,
plays the hard headed hard ass very well. He's a
yes.
little bit stubborn, but very very tough,
I
very
loved
strong.
his back and forth with Galadriel in season 1. Like I thought their chemistry was so great in that.
Yes, agree.
All right. Anything else? There was the controversy of the orcs not wanting to fight anymore, the family orcs, but orcs do have babies. It is a real thing in Tolkien's work. So I'm sure there are a span of orcs that are like, hey, I just want to sit at home with my baby and not worry about anything.
Well, I think this is going to be yet another mechanism of Sauron. I think that what he's going to do is drive a wedge between Adar and the orcs,
Yes.
and
So they go to Sauron. Yep.
yep, and it's going to be the exact like how we saw in the beginning was at our, bringing the crown down, and all of them with him and their stat. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
be the exact inverse, probably at the end of this season or next season. But that's, yeah, just again, another tentacle in this monster that is Sauron. He's got his hands everywhere, and it's awesome, dude.
Yeah, yeah. So overall, I'm enjoying season 2 a lot. I'm at first I was like, do we need to have 3 at the start here? But it
We
worked
did.
for me because there was
We did.
characters that we did not see at all in the first 2 that I would have been like, what? No Isildur yet?
Yeah.
No Arondir yet? So
Hmm.
getting them in episode 3, I was like, all right, this is cool. And now we're kind of really set up for the last 5 episodes of the season. And look, I don't know if it's fully renewed for season 3 yet, but it is like in the top 10 of Amazon Prime shows in like every country, and it displaced The Boys for a bit, and the Boys is getting a season 5. So I do think with how much money they also invested in this, they had to pay like 250 mil just for the rights of Lord of the Rings. I do think we see all 5 seasons, but I think the critical reaction and the fans being a little bit more on board with this season is good outlook for the show as well.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Your point, that was the one I was going to make. They've invested so much into this. It's like when you're an NFL team and you pay a quarterback X amount.
250 million. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you are going to ride or die with that guy. One way or the other. You can't pull the
Yeah.
rug out halfway through and then leave people enough room to say what if. I think they're gonna.
Unless you're
They're
the
gonna see,
Falcons and you draft a
yeah,
rookie right
yeah.
after signing Kirk Cousins.
Well, that's the Hunt for Gollum movie. That's Michael Penix. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, that's what War for Rohirrim too, because
Yeah.
they fast tracked that just to keep the rights at WB for
Oh, it
film.
was like a Spider-Man thing where they had to
Yep.
make X
Yep.
amount. Okay.
So that's why War Rohirrim even got like fast tracked for WB, is because they're like, we still want to hold on to these Lord of the Rings film rights.
Yeah.
Amazon has the TV rights
TV
now.
rights. Yeah. By the way, I have to add,
Yeah.
I thought that The Hunt for Gollum was an animated movie until like 2 days
No,
ago.
yeah,
I had
live action.
and this is like the first of a few that they have that they're
Yep.
planning.
And Circus is directing, and they're bringing Jackson as a producer, and the people that wrote the Lord of the Rings are writing the movie. Like, they're going all in on it.
So that's
Great
awesome.
For our show. Great
Yeah,
for our show. We're like, yeah.
Yeah, we picked a great time. And I think the release date is January 26th. So we're not too far off. There's Marvel movies that are playing out further than that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
stoked. Very stoked.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. I love this world. I just want to see more in it. And I'm glad the show is going strong in season 2 so far, because I'm enjoying it. As controversial as it may be, I am enjoying this season. I'm enjoying the show, and I love the characters, and yeah, just really excited to see where they go, and hopefully they get all 5 seasons, so we have that build up to that final season where all these characters are sharing the screen, and you're getting your Avengers moment of,
Yeah.
oh my god, this has been built up to, and all these characters are on the screen.
The stranger is making fire arrows for Arondir. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 Yes, for sure.
It's like, imagine if you had all of a separate movie for each character in the Fellowship, and then you build up to the Fellowship scene, and you're like, oh my god, we got
Yeah.
Legolas teaming up with Gimli. This is insane. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, looking forward to that. Okay, anything else before we head out?
Nope. I think we covered everything pretty well. I was wondering if we were going to be able to fit this much discussion into a digestible sort of little package here, but I think we did, as we are just now kind of crossing the hour 20 mark. So I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we did a good job. If you want longer podcasts, there are other podcasts out there that are probably talking 3 hours about these 3 episodes. Not us. Okay. So at Fantasy Folk Pod on all of our social medias, right? It's not the Fantasy Folk Pod, is it?
Nope.
What's our
Just-
social?
Yeah.
Fantasy
No.
Folk Pod. Okay. Yeah, at fantasyfolkpod on all of our social media channels. For that, we've got some great stuff on TikTok lately. We've had I shared some pictures of a WB Studios tour with Game of Thrones stuff, a Game of Thrones watch party I had before, all that good stuff. Check that out. Ron makes great like meme ones. He also makes
Shitty
great
memes, they're
like
great.
he also makes great like vibe check ones. Like so go check that out. We're launching the TikTok over there. It's been fun. And yeah, we're very excited for the podcast. So episode 4 premieres Thursday. I guess we'll try to record again like Friday or around there and try to get this episode out. So you'll be hearing from us again very shortly as we talk episode 4 of The Rings of Power.